going to give you any lessons. This is just a personal journey of mine. I'm going to ask everybody out there just to take a look at me. Go on. Take a long, hard stare. It's super uncomfortable for me. You have no idea how it feels to have 300 people staring at you. But go on, take a good, hard stare, because in a minute I'm going to ask if anybody wants to take a guess as to who I am, what I've done, where I've been, what I do, where I'm going. Anybody? Anybody want to take a guess? It's not that hard. From the title of my talk, I am American-born and I am Chinese. I'm not implying by any means that I have attention deficiency disorder, but for anybody who knows me, you know that at any one time I have a million thoughts running through my little head, and it's pretty hard to keep track of what I'm saying. For myself, it's hard to keep track of what I'm thinking, and if you can't tell, I'm writing and rewriting this talk as I'm saying it. So if I stop and I start looking puzzled, it's because of that. Now, I am going to ask you to try to stay with me for the next few minutes, because I am going to give you some insights into who I am, how I live, and how I work. And I want you to be conscious of how your perception of me might change throughout my talk, how it might change, how often it might change, and just be aware of that. This talk is about my personal journey, but I strongly believe that it tells a story about the possibilities in each of your personal journeys, and how we shouldn't let the expectations that are inherent in us keep us from doing things a little bit differently. My grandparents are doctors. My parents, they met at medical school in Japan. They're doctors. They moved to New York and had 4 daughters, and now you can only imagine what their dream was for us. My oldest sister, she's a doctor. Now, given this little snapshot into my life, you might have an idea of who I am, or the type of childhood I had. But is it accurate? Is it built on social stigmas? Are your perceptions built on stereotypes? And if they are, is it wrong to perceive or try to digest the world by using these kinds of stereotypes? Like many American-born Chinese kids, maybe this is feeding a little bit on Larry's talk, I went to Chinese school, I took piano, I took violin, I had the tutor. But unlike the other American-born Chinese who were really studious and disciplined and learned only how to do things really well, I was exposed to a lot of different things, and maybe it's because I'm a 4th child, so whatever I wanted to explore, I could explore, and I did everything from oil painting and carpentry and photography and drama and gymnastics and horseback riding, and these are all as like a little kid. Jack of all trades, master of none. But I loved it. I mean, the more I could learn, the more I could put my hands on things, the more I could understand how things worked, the more I wanted to learn, the more I wanted to try different things. So yeah, maybe I did something for 1 week or I did something for 1 month, but I kept jumping around from thing to thing. And it continued into my adulthood. And I've taken everything from dressmaking to welding to stained glass to rock climbing. Last year I learned how to play the drums. I took marine navigation classes. I took sailing. I took car repair classes. I even changed the brakes on my own car. The car didn't stop, but that's another story. When I was in high school, I helped modify my friend's engine on his car. I wasn't even going to mention that, but we were driving at 60 miles an hour on the highway and it didn't stop. So you had to turn off and restart the engine. Well, it was a nightmare. And you know what? I was doing that using a manual that was in Japanese because I took 1 summer of Japanese, and I thought that I could change this engine using my 1 month of, it was ridiculous. Don't do it. No, actually, go back. Okay. What if I told you I was a good student? On paper. But I hated school. I was the worst type of student. You could look at my notes and I would start writing notes and then you would see a long line drop off because I was falling asleep. Couldn't do it. Classrooms are horrible for me. Take me out of the classroom and I'm fine. As soon as I was old enough to start working, I did. At 14, I was working at my parents' clinic. I was taking urine samples, vital statistics for young patients. Then I was a telemarketer at the United Jewish Appeal. I handed out leaflets on the streets of Manhattan. I sold romance novels at bookstores. And then I turned 17 or 16 or 17 or whatever it was, and that's when you have to make this decision. Society says you have to understand or try to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life. And how the hell am I supposed to know what I want to do for the rest of my life, let alone the next 4 years? So I was like, okay, Yvette, be practical. Do something that's going to be fun and entertaining, and at least let me travel. So I did, and I went to hotel school. And in typical Yvette fashion, I couldn't sit still and just study one thing. So on the side, I was studying art and architecture and design and psychology and philosophy. And I was teaching studios and art studios and taking all these creative classes on the side. Did an internship at an architecture studio. At 20, I started an NGO, a nonprofit organization in Thailand on marine and coastal zone management. And when I graduated from school, I moved to Shanghai, and in my spare time, I cleaned shark tanks. So again, with my very poor language skills, because I'm American-born and Chinese, and I was horrible at Chinese school, I went to this aquarium and I said, hey, do you need any volunteers? They're like, sure, can you dive? Yeah, I can dive. And I could dive. I was a horrible diver. This guy's talking to me in Chinese, and he's like explaining what I do if different like fish or sharks come towards me. And he's like, and if this comes towards you, you knock rocks together, and if this comes towards you, you kind of ignore it. And I'm just, yeah, no problem. Oh my God, anything that like came within like 5 meters from me, I was like knocking rocks together. And the whole time, it's one of these aquariums where you're walking through the tunnels and there are people taking photos of you. And I was probably in this wetsuit that was built for like a 6'5" man that was hot pink, and I'm just like shivering, and what the hell am I doing down here? Anyways, that was Shanghai. After Shanghai, I moved to Scotland, and I taught some classes at the local school for hotel management, and I made coffees at a coffee shop. After that, I moved to New York. I made cupcakes. I iced cupcakes. Man, I should have brought this over to Hong Kong back then. How many cupcake shops are there now? In 15 years, I've had 22 jobs, 15 companies. I've quit jobs I never started. Some of my friends call me fickle, but in the most endearing fashion. It's quite nice. When I'm not working, I'm making things. I made this ring, I made this necklace, I made my shirt, I made my dining room table, I made my plates and my bowls. When I'm not making things, I'm going through garbage and taking it home and calling it art. This is a piece of wood I found in Shanghai. I brought it home one night at 3 a.m. and my friends were thinking, what are you doing? If you don't recognize it, it's from the lumber yards. It's the piece of wood they use to support whatever it is they're cutting with a miter saw. It reminds me of Hong Kong and New York. When I'm not making things, I'm not watching TV because I don't have a television. I have my passport. My passport's my Bible. I travel anywhere and everywhere. I travel to eat. I travel to see the way people live. I travel to see the way they work, the way they love. I travel to see the way places change. I've backpacked. I've hitchhiked. I've been in a lot of risky situations I probably shouldn't have been in. I've camped roadside, lakeside. I once crossed illegally into Tibet from Nepal by crossing a very unstable log on the river. There were leeches on the other side. I think that was my lesson. I quickly crossed back. Last week, I was sitting in the back of a pickup truck in Thailand. I don't know what I'm doing in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 decades. What does that say about me? What if I said I went to an Ivy League university? I graduated on the dean's list a semester early, got out of there as soon as I could, moved to Shanghai, worked at quite a successful hotel. In a short 6-month period, did a hell of a lot. I was empowered to make decisions, I was supervising, I was training employees, and it was there that in my spare time, I cleaned shark tanks. But Shanghai wasn't ready for me. And likewise, I wasn't ready for Shanghai, and I really wanted to leave. So at the end of 6 months, I left. decided to move back to New York, but without a real plan. And so I went via Scotland, where I lived on that teeny tiny island off the north coast, where they had like 1 hour of daylight in the winter. And I worked at this coffee shop, and I made coffees, and then I walked up to the university, the local school, and I taught some classes there. And when I moved back to New York, I realized I didn't want to make any decisions right away. So I made Cupcakes. Give it a little bit of time, a headhunter called me up and they said, hey, Yvette, saw your resume. I don't know how because I hadn't sent it to anybody. And there's this new boutique hotel opening up. We want you to manage it. So at 23, I was a manager of probably one of the most successful boutique hotels in the world. At 25, I was promoted to Director of Human Resources. At 26, we succeeded as being the first hotel in the history of New York to ever maintain a union-free environment. And it was great. The company was great. The hotel was cool. But I was the Director of Human Resources. I don't want to be a Director of Human Resources. But you're already at the top. Where do you go in a company when you're already at the top? And it's kind of hard to go back down. And it was just anyways. So I quit. And between the time I resigned and the time I left, my general manager continued to send me on development and training programs. And our owners in London called me up and said, hey, Yvette, we want you to go open up the hotel in London before you leave. And I said, sure, no problem, I'll do it. And I remember asking Mark, my general manager, and just saying, Mark, it's kind of stupid of you. I mean, why are you investing in training me when I'm leaving? And he said, you know what, Yvette, you never know when we're going to work together again. Okay, fair enough. As far as I knew, we weren't going to work together again because I was going to Asia. I had lined up a position with NBC to work on the Olympics in Beijing, but it was 2 years away. So I said, okay, I'm going to take 2 years off and just kind of explore and travel a little bit. So I did it for a little bit, and then I landed in Hong Kong. And I was like, hey, Hong Kong isn't bad. And I was using Hong Kong as a base to travel. But I was like, well, for work, this could actually make a bit of sense. So I called up a few people and asked them for drinks and landed this job. I quit NBC because that was still a year away. And I worked on this job as a financial consultant with developers for hotels. I worked on everything from budget hotels to boutique hotels to luxury resorts. I traveled from Bora Bora to India to Indonesia to China to Cambodia to Sri Lanka. I was working on 45 plus projects, telling developers what to do, how to build hotels, how to make the most money. I was traveling more outside of Hong Kong than I was spending in Hong Kong. And I was there for 4 years, and I mean, this was only a few years ago. 7 of those hotels are already built, another 10 are probably opening up tomorrow. People were like, yeah, that's the dream job. We're so envious of Yvette. What if I told you I didn't like it? That there was actually such a thing as too much travel. That traveling so much meant that I didn't get to appreciate Hong Kong for what it was. And that I was a financial consultant. And just like being an HR director, I was just doing this little itty-bitty portion of this huge, massive project, and it just wasn't enough for me. But when you work for a company that you like, and I love my employers, and when you work for a company that pays you really well, you can almost just go with emotions. You can almost just close your eyes and just keep doing the same thing over and over again like a robot, and say, you know what, it's stable, it's easy. Why chase a challenge? Why look for something that might be riskier if I could just continue with what I'm doing? And so I did that for a few years, and as soon as I decided I would stay, I opened my eyes up and I said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Yvette, you're getting too comfortable. And I told my bosses that I was leaving. They're like, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to move to South America. But then I'm not going to move to South America. I'm going to move to New York. People ask me, what are you going to do? How's this going to look on your resume? Why would you quit a good job that paid you well? You should really stay in Hong Kong, get your permanent residency. It's only 2 years away. And all I could do was shrug my shoulders. So I packed up everything I had. I got rid of my flat. Shipped everything to New York. I had farewell lunches, brunches, dinners, drinks, parties. Sent out 1,000 emails to all my work contacts saying, you know what, moving to New York. Everybody was saying, congratulations, congratulations, that's great. Stay in touch. Continue learning and taking classes and just broadening my knowledge. What if I told you? Oh, I forgot to mention, I bought a one-way ticket back to New York. What if I told you I never took that one-way ticket and never got on the airplane? All my things that I packed and sent off to New York are still in New York, still packed in the same boxes. And they're actually probably in some warehouse that looks like that. I stayed in Hong Kong, and I took a big risk. I created my own company. And people say, well, Yvette, what do you do? And what my company does is completely unique, and it's a complete product of the fact that I've worked in all these different positions and all these different companies, that I jumped around from place to place and traveled on all these unbeaten paths. Because what I can do is I can tell a client, all right, I'll find you a site, build you a concept, build you a brand, I'll hire your employees, I'll train your employees, I'll run your hotel, and when you get tired of it, I'll even sell it and make you your money back. And these are all things that you could really only do if you had all the experiences I had. My former colleagues, I still work with them. My boss from Shanghai is working on a project with me in the Philippines. My GM, Mark, in New York, who said, hey, Yvette, you never know when we're going to work together again. We're collaborating on a pitch for a project in LA. My bosses in Hong Kong send me referrals, and likewise, I send them referrals. My clients are still my clients, but I offer them something totally unique. At the end of the day, I do what I love. I learn and I share. And as long as the people around me have the right intentions, I'm happy to give them my all and then some. I'll work for money, I'll work for free, I'll work for food, I'll work for fun. Now, I'm not saying that this could work for everybody. In fact, it probably doesn't work for most people. Some people could look at me and say, all right, she's got no plan. She's got no path. Somebody even said that they felt sorry for me because I didn't have a path. I was like, okay. I might not be attached to belongings. I might not be attached to a place or to a job title, certainly not to a paycheck. But there are some constants in my life. Everything I do with passion and integrity. I want to remain curious. I want to constantly learn and explore things, meet people. Why am I telling you this? Paradigms of success, that we were supposed to have one career, one life, one job, that we're supposed to do one thing. These were created ages ago, when people only lived to be 50, when people only had enough time in their lives to live one life, to have one job. The world is a completely different place now. What was relevant then isn't relevant anymore. We're living to 100, we're mobile, there are choices, there are options out there. Are we meant to live just that one life and one job and one dream? And if somebody does do that, are they any more successful than you if you don't? Because at the end of the day, all roads lead to Rome. Thank you.